Today we're going to take a look at the old Horus Heresy Collected Visions set. This collected all four, I think, issues of Collected Visions from back in the day.
Spiky bits. Make sure you stay in the trenches by becoming a supporter over on Patreon and also scoring yourself some free miniature swag in the process. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out our site, spikybits.com, for all the hot hobby tutorials, news, rumors on all your favorite hobby topics. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.
What's up, hobby maniacs? Baer here with some awesome Horus Heresy love-ins. This is the Collected Visions book. It was kind of like a compilation book of all of the four issues, I want to say, of Collected Visions. Let's see. What's the inset jacket say? That created, nah, it doesn't say. But anyways, there was a bunch of these. You could buy them separately. They got pretty pricey. But then when you actually got into all of them together, and they released this at the very end, of course, because, well, let's face it, Black Lever ain't a bunch of dummies. They're gonna get theirs. You know what I mean? This was kind of the way to go, because I think it was like $50 US for this one. So this was the way better deal. And what this is it's a collection of the background stories and everything, kind of predating or right around the time of the launching of the Heresy novels. But what's more, I guess, relevant or cooler is the fact that all of the artwork from the Sabretooth games, Warhammer 40k CCG from the early 2000s are in here, and that's what a lot of the art originally started out as for the Horus Heresy series, and then they started evolving the art and things like that. But it was an important step because it's that all the story and the background for the card game really turned into a lot of what ended up being in the books. Now there's almost 40 books now, plus we have the Horus Heresy, 6 books of the actual game itself from Forge World, all sorts of stuff out there. Nearly 10 years later, it's kind of been expanded and fleshed out to a lot of the degree. But back when this stuff was coming out, it really was, I guess a lot of it was still kind of new and fresh, and they were kind of still trying to figure it out, and a lot of things overlapped it. For instance, the Emperor's Children, for a time, were the 20th Legion. They weren't the 3rd Legion, and the 20th Legion now is the Alpha Legion. So there's a lot of different things that were canon then and aren't canon now, and it's just kind of cool to look back and get these visuals of the game itself, and where kind of a lot of this stuff evolved from. And one of the places it evolved from was this very first original art of Horus versus the Emperor from, I think this was 1988. It was definitely in the Rogue Trader, the original rule book, and Adrian Smith, this was his original. Of course, he drew the second one that a lot more people know was Sanguinus dead on the steps, and full color art, and it's a very striking picture. But back then, this was even more striking, because this was where it all kind of came from, right? And of course the story's changed about that fateful day as well over the years. So then it gets into the credits. This whole thing was put together by Alan Merritt. The Battle for Prospero and the Caban Project by Graham McNeil, which was really great little short stories. If you haven't read them yet, definitely check those out. You can probably find them online or, of course, in this book. Concept art, of course, John Blanche. Cover art by Sam Wood. And then, all sorts of extra art and artists and things, and all the Sabretooth games crew are in here as well. So all sorts of amazing stuff. Now, this particular book was from 2007. So remember, the Heresy novel series launched in 2006. So this is fresh. When this came out, this was pretty fresh. Now, there isn't like a table of contents. This is a 400-page book, but it just kind of rambles. It just kind of goes. You just kind of gotta just stick with it, because there's stuff literally written everywhere. But then there's art, and there's art that's repeated, and there's art that's the full overlay and everything like that. So it's just it's a very immersive book that will literally, once you pick it up, you want to put it down. And then here's the timeline talking about the various ages: the Age of Terra, Age of Technology, Age of Strife, Age of Imperium, and then basically wherever we're at right now in the storyline. And there's of course part of the very striking artwork by Adrian Smith, which came out about that time in 2006, 2007. That's just one piece of the actual picture there. So it gets into the Horus Heresy, and then it just starts, kind of branching out from there, like Age of Strife, Origin of the Space Marines, like all of the art in here. You got John Blanchard, you got some of these other folks like Adrian Smith, normal sketch work. Like that's, when I saw that, I was like, that's obviously Boucher, right? And then here is some Legion of Astartes like background, and then like I said, it gets into full bleed pictures. You've got littler pictures, you got just full like overleaf features, and it just goes and talks about literally every facet of the Heresy: Imperial Commanders, the Council of Terra, Mechanicum of Mars, just all sorts of stuff in here. Battle of Istavan 3, where they weed out the legions, and just very, very breathtaking. Of course, Blanche's artwork of the Primarchs themselves, and then there's some of the showing the card game right there, and more of the art. So it's a great book. It's got tons and tons of good stuff in here. If you played the game, you're probably going to recognize some of a VTOL little jump auxiliary sentinel right there. That'd be pretty cool to see these days in game. There's some more spectacular artwork. Like I said, it's just really amazing looking stuff in here, and that's the starships. The game itself, the 40K CCG was actually, I really enjoyed the game. It was similar to kind of like the Star Wars CCG by Decipher back in the 90s, where you played at like locations. And it was really neat because in that regard, you could kind of plan out your attacks and things. The first kind of run of it, I forget exactly what it was called. It had some sort of name like Battle of whatever, but that was pretty well balanced. But then they started coming out with more and more expansions, and it kind of started jumping the shark towards the end, where the very last, when they re-released it, trying to, basically bank on the Horus Heresy title itself, that was a little unbalanced, because you would have these matchups to where you had to have a good side and a bad side, and there was a certain side that was like always super overbalanced, and it was a little disparaging and disappointing, I guess, kind of, because the original version of the game was I felt so much better, and it was really fun game to play. It was almost like playing a card game version of 40K almost. Here's more art, talking about the Palace Vaults. Just like the most randomest stuff in here. Like if you have any sort of, question about, lore or anything to do with the Horus Heresy, it's just a great amount. It's just stuff in here. Here's that short story. I think this was the Caban Machine, right here by Graham McNeil. Yeah, the Caban Project, the thing that gains, self-awareness, basically, which was also featured in the Mechanicum novel. This is a little side note to like basically how it wakes up and starts chasing them around the planet right there, and then it gets into more background, like the conclusions. It kind of skips around. Like, you remember this thing was sold in 4 parts, so it was like part 1 and part 2 and part 3 and kind of like that, just to try to get you to come back and buy the book. So lots of different kind of alternate looks at, like, there's Fulgrim right there, and then you got some different art kind of chopped up that you might not have seen before. Lots of different art of the Primarchs Ascendant, into their full demon forms, and just all sorts of glorious stuff in here. The Wolf and the Khan, a lot of background that you might not know, or might have been already scrapped and kind of retconned, I guess, so to speak, is in here as well. But it's definitely worth a read. If you can find this book on a discount, like from Amazon, or even on eBay, it's definitely worth picking up to add it to your bookshelf. The smells of rich mahogany and leather-bound tomes, of course. And then here's all the cards from all the sets. They kind of lay them out for everybody to see right here. This is the original set, and you can see, you got people like Saul Tarovitz, that was, part of the original novel series. And this card game came out a good 3-4 years before the novels actually introduced a lot of these characters to kind of the mainstream, I guess, of the Horus Heresy. Here's all of the cards for the first set. It looks like a lot of this is expansions. Yeah, I don't remember some of these. Yeah, this is more towards the end, expansions, and there's some of the locations and things. So it's cool to see, what art made it exactly how into the cards. And then in here it shows, all of the full art, just kind of depending on how they chopped it up. But really cool stuff here, the Silver Spires. This was actually a new, this was the base set. Frozen Heart, Sisters of Silence, had a flying rhino. The Emperor's Gift, Legion Custodes flying rhino. That would be a cool kit to see from Forge World at some point, hopefully. Lots of cool stuff in here, man. I can't even stop kind of flipping at it. And then the very back, of course, there's the this was the logo that they used for the old Horus Heresy card game when it was released, and then subsequently went out of print. And that looks to collect all of those cards right there. So really cool stuff. Like I was saying, it's just a really neat book that really kind of fills in a lot of gaps and also opens up a lot of questions. But it's just a great picture book, basically. You know, put it on the coffee table and kind of flip through it every now and then, and you'll always find something new in here. That's for sure. Every time I pick it up, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Ooh, that's cool. Very neat stuff right there. So that's the Horus Heresy Collected Visions, not to be confused with. There's a version very similar to this that's black bound. That's for the Horus Heresy art kind of thing for from Forge World in Black Library. This was mostly based off of the card game itself. So there's two different collective visions out there. Those are the two to look out for. This one's probably the cheaper of the two because it's so much older, I feel like. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.